Good to see you.
I do have a little presentation on the flash drive. Do you want it now, or you want me to?
I am having a rough time here.
Okay.
I can't get anything to go up on the screen, unfortunately. Now
I'll just wave
everything.
my arms.
Now everything that you've submitted, they have copies of.
Okay.
So you can. I mean, we could plug it in, and you can walk through it on here, and then you can tell them which page
Actually,
it
I'd like to
is.
do that because I got
Okay.
some notes on there that
Okay.
would help me.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on here.
Technology is wonderful when it works.
Oh, yeah, it's exceptional. The problem is we just assume it always works. Test 1, 2, test 1, 2.
It's already dated.
Everybody's ready? You ready, Shelby? Excellent. Excuse me. Excellent. Good evening, everybody. This is the June 13th meeting of the City of Kalamazoo Zoning Board of Appeals, a volunteer advisory board appointed by the City Commission. Would staff please conduct the roll call?
Vanden Hamburg,
Here.
Wark,
Here.
Holder,
Here.
Harrington,
Here.
McReynolds,
Here.
and Hahn.
Here.
Thank you. Excuse me. For each public hearing, public comments will be accepted during the times indicated on tonight's meeting agenda. Community members may call 888-382-9556 during the public comment period, where they will enter a queue and will be prompted to offer their comments in turn. Callers will be commenting live. They are not able to leave a recorded message. Are there any announcements or changes to the agenda?
The only announcement I have is just a reminder that we have a Robert's Rules presentation that Charlie is going to do for us after we're done with the two public hearings tonight. So, and I've got a handout, but I thought I'd hold on to that until we get to that point so there's less paper in front of you for the actual public hearing.
So I suppose you guys could stay for that if you want, but you don't have to.
Parliamentary procedures. It's good stuff. Right, Charlie? Yes, it is. Okay, and I have no changes to the agenda.
All right, thanks, guys. All right, so first up is the approval of last month's minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes? Anybody wish to make a motion?
I move to approve.
Any second? Somebody said second.
I second
right?
that.
There you go. Any discussion on the minutes? No? Fine, then we will vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Say aye. Carries 6-0. All right, and those are approved. I will now explain the procedure for tonight's public hearing. For each of the requests on the agenda, the secretary will read the application into the public record. The applicant or representative will then have 10 minutes to provide their comments. I tell everybody 10 minutes is not a lot of time, so make sure you use it wisely. Make sure when you come up, you sign in, provide your name and address at the podium. Whoever, you probably will get asked to repeat it and how to spell it because that's what we do. And then following that, the public will be invited to comment at the podium. They are to sign in, clearly state their name and address, and then they will have 3 minutes to make their remarks. Those people also need to keep it brief, but usually they do anyway. Those in favor of the request are invited to speak first. Those opposed will speak after that. Then we will have the call-in comments. After that, we close the public portion, or the public hearing portion on that request. The board will then conduct what is called a finding of fact, which is where the board states what they feel are the facts of the request. The board must approve the finding of fact of the board. Thank you. Just realized I probably have board in that sentence too many times. Therefore, the first vote you hear is not a ruling on the request, but on accepting the finding of fact. Following this, the board discusses the request in order to determine a ruling. During this period, the board reserves the right to ask any questions of persons who have already spoken, even after the public portion is closed. Once that discussion is ended, then the board will move on to a roll call vote of approving, denying, or denying the applicant's request. Please be aware that you only need 4 of the 6 of us to vote for it for non-use or use variances. I think that's what it is, yeah. Thank you. To the secretary, would you read the first application into the record?
I will. Alrighty. An application for a variance for provisions of the zoning ordinance have been filed with the Zoning Board of Appeals by Panda Express Group, Inc., ZBA number 24-04-10, 4300 West, at 4300 West Main Street. The applicant is requesting a dimensional variance of 18 feet, for the front setback from Chapter 50, 50-5.1, Table 5.1-2, to allow the building to be located 38 feet from the front property line where the build-to zone is 10 to 20 feet. Please note that this request will not change the zoning classification of the properties.
Excellent, thank you. Would the applicant please come up to the podium, sign in, introduce yourself, state your address, and then explain the request?
My name's Jillian. Oh, that's louder than I thought. Sorry. My name's Jillian Benaglio. I'm here representing Panda Express. I'm with Atwell. We're the engineering firm for this project. I'm coming from Shelby Township, so not local. This logged out of the PDF.
All right, Jillian, could you?
Sorry.
Could you spell your last name for me, please?
Yeah. B as in boy, ENAGLIO.
All right, and what company are you with?
Atwell.
Atwell.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Pete, are you able to log back into this? It logged out.
Oh,
Sorry. I can kind of start speaking to the project. So in the packets that you were given, we provided our desired layout. And with that layout, we have that 38-foot building setback with that 18-foot relief showing. And within that, we have circular access within our parking lot for patrons to be able to safely maneuver within there, as well as having a dedicated loading area and place for the dumpsters to be able to turn around. And then it leaves the drive-through for solely drive-through purposes with a pass-through lane in case for some reason they need to get out and go back to the road. Our site currently has 2 existing curb cuts. We have had discussions with MDOT on those, and they do prefer to keep those as is. They are not open to changing them. There are already quite a few curb cuts along that road, and these are kind of at the max and minimum separated distances that they would like to see. So we are somewhat confined there. I wonder if I could. Oh, look, you can get up there. Maybe.
well, look at that.
Probably have the settings.
Now to just figure out how to make it full
And in the
screen.
lower right-hand corner is the Zoom.
Okay. Oh, too far.
Okay.
Okay. So this was the one that I was speaking to, and so you can kind of see those elements with the drive-through just on that west side, our 2 existing curb cuts, and then that internal circulation road with the, does it show on this one right here or no? Okay. And then up in that this top corner is the dumpster. And this site plan allows for circulation of our loading trucks, dumpsters, and pedestrians and vehicles to kind of circulate safely. No, I just need to figure out how to get to the next page. Yep, and so this next exhibit, this was also in your packets. This just shows those truck turning movements and how we can get cars around the building, just in case, like when they're going through the drive-through, if something was missing from their order, if there is a longer wait time where they need to pull into a spot to be helped. And then I'll go to this next one. So this was taking into consideration the planner's comments for bringing that building closer. We would need, in the packet, they are supporting a 3-foot variance that we would need because of a consumer's easement at the front of the property. But with this layout, in order to make it kind of functional, we would need to move the curb cut, which MDOT isn't in support of, so we would have some issues and pushback with that. But also, for a vehicle to make the turn around the building where we're keeping your required minimum 5-foot landscaping at the front and then having enough room for a travel lane between that 5-foot minimum landscape and the building, they won't be able to make that turn. And that turn check is done with just an average 19-foot long vehicle. And so we just wanted to highlight that for even with having this layout, you're kind of stuck on the site once you get to it. And then same with any delivery vehicle or dumpster, trash truck removal, they would have to go through the drive-through lane in order to circulate out because there would not be room on the site for them to maneuver and turn around. We did look at the possibility from the suggestion of the planner to have parking along our drive-through, which we do see often-ish with other similar fast food type restaurants. This doesn't help our case for needing spaces in case there's a longer waiting for the drive-through or if something was wrong with the order, because they still wouldn't be able to turn into those parking spots with the restriction of the parking needing to be behind the building, that it can't be pulled in front of. This would also create an unsafe access for the pedestrians. That I kind of outlined it in this drawing. This wasn't in your packet. You can kind of see I aligned some parking there on the west side. It would move more than half of our parking to that side to still be within compliance and giving us an area for a truck to stop for loading on the east side of the site. And that would push a lot of the pedestrian traffic, a lot of the customers to be walking through a drive-through lane, which just causes a lot of opportunity for unsafe travel. A lot more traffic will be going through there with any larger trucks, any vehicle leaving like the parking lot or going through the drive-through, and it brings up more chances for incidents. And so from our point of view, even though it is done occasionally, it's not a safe option, and it's not something that we would want to rely on either. With our proposed layout, we did make every effort that we could to bring it forward with still allowing us that maneuvering distances. So we know that you guys did just redo your zoning ordinance to bring all the buildings closer. And we are making an effort to bring it as close as we can. And with some of the other buildings along this corridor, can I drag this? This highlights some of the other buildings in the area. So there's that strip mall that's directly to the east of us, and they're at a 48-foot setback. It is an older building, and none of these were part of this new ordinance. I'm just trying to highlight where our building would fall in line with the existing ones. And then to the west, there is the Tim Hortons, which is at, I think, a 55-foot setback is what I have written. And then there's the credit union that has a 97-foot setback. Yeah. And the Tim Hortons and the credit union are all newer buildings built within like the past 10 to 15 years at least. And so even with development coming to this corridor, those most likely won't be torn down, at least from my point of view. And then same when you look at the other side of the street, there's at least 3 of the other 5 properties that are also newer that have much greater setbacks. So I'd like to just kind of pose that we are still trying to bring it closer. I think even with granting an 18-foot setback, we are still making every effort we can to align with your zoning ordinance. And even with future development, with this 18-foot setback, if the other developments come in and they are able to meet that 20, it wouldn't look off-putting. It wouldn't look like ours is too far back from the road, just from looking at the other immediate neighboring buildings. So I think that was everything I had. No, that one's kind of hard to see. I won't speak to that one. So that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where's my, is it on to staff? Does staff have any comments they'd like to make?
Staff does have a few comments to make, and Jillian touched on the easements along the frontage, and as the board probably noted in the staff report, we are trying to take that into account, that some relief is necessary, and have mentioned, 3 feet in the staff report. But I guess what I want to do is just step back and talk about the CC2 zone district for a moment. That is one of the new zone districts that we created in October of 2023. It is intended to be a less intense commercial zone district than the CC zone, which the best example of that is really, the way things have evolved along Stadium Drive. West Main's got a slightly lower speed limit, and development is more ripe to be to evolve into a more pedestrian-friendly area, especially with the adjacent residential, where Stadium Drive is kind of cut off from the neighborhoods around it. So, that's the reason this was rezoned to the CC2 zone district. And as I laid out in the staff report, I talked a little bit about the scale of commercial development in the CC2 zone district, and the new design standards. We're now working with a build-to zone, not a building setback, which those zone districts where we still use a building setback, that is the minimum distance with no maximum. The build-to zone basically says the front of your building has to be within this range. You can't push it too far back. You can't bring it any further than the minimum of the build-to zone. So it will over time create uniformity along West Main. Granted, we just adopted this last year. It was pointed out we have, some newer buildings on the north side of West Main that, will probably be there for some time. But, that doesn't negate the fact that we are moving in a different direction, as density increases in Kalamazoo. And so we anticipate that, at some point, the speed limit will be lowered. We'll get more commercial growth. These frontages will start to pack up. There will be less, seas of asphalt and more buildings. So, that is really what is anticipated. So I just wanted to kind of frame that and then talk a little bit about this site. So in this particular case, this is a redevelopment, meaning that the building that's there, is going to be removed, which allows for flexibility in the placement of the new building. There are constraints, obviously. The curb cuts onto West Main cannot be moved according to MDOT, so those are what they are. The easements along the frontage, those are what they are. But beyond that, there is, a lot of flexibility in design to really work through, meeting the standards of the city ordinance and creating the functionality needed for a restaurant on this site. So that's really where I want to leave it. And like I said, as I mentioned in the recommendation, it talked about the, granting of or supporting relief of a variance of 3 feet for this project before you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we'll open the public hearing and invite those who wish to speak in favor to do so. Please step up to the microphone. Go ahead. Make sure you write down your name and say it out loud.
Then I.
Can you say that
Can
one
you
more
say that
time?
again, please?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Brian Kahn, K-A-N. Brian is with an I.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brian Kahn, representative from Panda Express, here to speak with you. First of all, I would like to appreciate all of your time and effort to review our project. We're very glad to be here in Kalamazoo. I believe this is our second store. So I'm going to be very brief. As the administrator had talked about the Bill-2 line that was newly adopted in the zoning ordinance. The Bill-2 line is really to push the building forward as close to the street as possible for pedestrian-friendly atmosphere. We've seen that in numerous counties and cities across the country. It presents a challenge for drive-through users, not particularly for restaurants, but for drive-through users. As you can see, we don't have the site plan in front of us, but in your packet, you have the building, the red overlay. You can see the building is pushed very forward to, I believe, 3 feet was the recommendation to the Bill-2 line. That creates the drive-through to be dumping all the traffic out of the drive-through into the street directly. Our proposed layout, take that into consideration, is to relieve some of the traffic dumping out from the drive-through to circulate back into our parking lot. This will imagine you have a large order of Panda Express that you just ordered, and then you're exiting the drive-through, but you need to wait for your order, but then you have to make that exit into that busy street, make a left, or attempt to make a left, and then another left into our site to be able to wait for your order. So that is, more of a risky vehicular movement. Our propose was to create a lane in front of the building so that the larger drive-through orders can then wait for their order and then circulate out from that exit. Our proposed layout have a full circulation within our parking lot. That, in another function, would be the drive-through lane managing the overflow of the drive-through within the containment of our parking lot.
Thank you.
Oh,
What's up? He can finish up, that's fine.
The time. So the red overlay does create the risk of the drive-through overflow to be stacking along the single drive aisle and potentially out of the street. So those are the concerns that I want to bring on. So that's it for me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any others in favor? Seeing none, anybody wishing to speak against it? Seeing none, any call-in comments?
I am checking right now. And we have no call-in comments for this case tonight.
Thank you very much. So that will close the public hearing portion. I'm sure we want to have discussion on this. Somebody else start. I normally wind up overtaking it, so somebody else start, please.
I'm wondering if the applicant was aware that when they purchased the property that it was zoned for commercial office. And then, just as of last year, it changed to the CC2, which, as Mr. Eldridge said, is a softer commercial district.
We have been in conversations with the city while you guys were going through the rezoning process for this parcel. So we did know that those changes were coming, and we did make updates to our site plan for that. There was confusion during our pre-app where since there was a building already on the site, there was miscommunication between us and the city that that was a 20-foot maximum building setback. We thought our site plan that we have presented today, it's still a little bit different because we did pull it a little bit farther forward after. We thought that would be in compliance.
In compliance, okay. Yeah, because for the citizens, that's a huge issue. We're not Stadium Drive. And to go from commercial office to an upgraded, the CC2 is a big jump. And, there's some concern that this was an office, and then you've got the CC2, and then you're requesting to get it up to a more advanced level with higher speed and higher traffic, and having cars in front of the building. So, I understand your point about wanting to have that for safety. That's understandable. Mr. Eldridge was talking about maybe having flexibility with the design. So, in working with Christina Anderson and with Mr. Eldridge, were there any conversations about what that might look like to try to accommodate?
Yeah, and that's where those red concepts that were in the packet, that's kind of where those come in, where we did entertain the idea of moving the drive approaches, which wasn't welcomed by MDOT.
Right.
And then we did try different building orientations as well, and to reroute the drive-through in a different way, but based on the width of the site, the circulation for operations of a drive-through restaurant just weren't feasible in those manners.
Okay.
So,
all right, so are you saying that, I just want to make sure I'm clear on this, that you did work with the city on doing all these different things and trying to find a way to address your concerns about safety and having that circular lane, and that's just not, it's just not feasible to have Panda Express there with that. Okay. All right, thank you.
I do have questions
I'll
for her,
just
so I don't
stay
want you to
here
run
while
away.
you guys go.
So did anybody else have questions for, because I had some questions. So this would need to be built, according to Pete, I think, on essentially 20 feet from the front line, 10 to 20 feet from the road, right? But there are easements that put in a defined amount.
So the easements essentially go 21 feet back from the front property line. So that's why staff is supportive of a reduced variance.
Okay.
That reduced variance would leave room for positioning the building outside the easements. It would leave room for any sort of signage on the front facade of the building, not projecting into the easement.
And you can't use the easement as a driving lane or anything?
No.
Okay, so it is what I'm getting at, you can't
we can't have pavement in the easement.
Thank you.
Yes, we just can't have
it's
the
not like a
building in it.
consumer's easement where the line is just overhead,
Yeah.
where it's not a big deal if there's some pavement there.
But based on pavement setbacks required in landscaping minimums, we can't pull that drive close enough to the property line and still have it be maneuverable coming out of the drive-through.
And you need to have a driving lane in front of the building too, correct? You don't have to have one, but you want one.
Yes, it's for the safety reasons that we've mentioned, and just for circulation within the site.
How wide does a driving lane need to be? 12 feet?
I think we're proposing 12 feet front of curb to front of curb.
Okay. And then you've got a little bit of buffer, and the building would not be right on that front driving lane. There's a little bit of a buffer.
I think there's a foot and a half.
So it is pretty close.
Yeah.
Because when I was looking at the map, I was just thinking through, are there any other ways that this could go? Why couldn't it be wider than it is deep? Like, would that open up space?
What, why
Like,
did-
right now, you've kind of got it, like, long, like, it's shorter along the front and it goes deeper. Why couldn't it be turned the other way? Like, what would that do to the space? Was that an option?
We did look at that, and then just with the way that the drive-through is, the drive-through would be on the back side of the building.
Okay.
And so then again, all of our parking would then also be on the other side of the drive-through, so then every customer would have to cross the drive-through lane to get to the building.
Okay.
And then there's still those limitations with the curb cuts along the road with MDOT.
I mean,
It'd be tight. I think they might like just fit with having it rotated. But the drive entrance would then be like right off that, and you wouldn't have much of a buffer for customer entrance into the building.
so you could, I mean, if I boil it down a little bit, you could make it work, but for safety reasons, essentially on the, I don't know, what is it, the west side of the parking lot? Where that extra row of cars would go? Just for safety reasons, you would rather not do that? I mean, that's essentially what it comes down to?
Well, it also, we can have parking over there. That function just, it won't work for Panda operations for any extended drive-through waiting, or like the pickup orders, or if there was something wrong with an order that they got through the drive-through. So if they did get their order and then they noticed something was wrong, they would have to exit back out onto West Main and then make the 2 lefts that Brian had mentioned.
Well, you could just go around the line in the front. I don't know. Sorry.
Oh, you're saying
spitball.
have the building and then still have the lane in front?
Yeah, I'm just thinking through look, I say this at most meetings. I come into these with a no mentality and need to be convinced otherwise. So I'm trying to get you to convince me is what it's coming down to.
Yeah.
Yes, that was sort of my thought is there, what is the closest we could get that gets you what you need and try to get to the CC2? And I'll talk on that later, but that's where my questions are coming from.
I think even so, you're saying if the building was rotated, so the long side was parallel with the road, and then you're still saying have that pass-through lane on our site in front of the store?
Just are these options that, that have been, that you went through and rejected?
Yeah.
Like I get when you say the operations, the way you guys do, the way they operate sort of needs it to be in a certain orientation. You've answered my questions, and I'm probably I need to stop talking. Somebody else answer the questions.
All right, I have another question. When you were talking with the city, and when you were working with Mr. Eldridge, did they talk with you about the 3 foot, if that would work, or is that something that you're hearing today for the first time?
That came in the staff report. So when we did have that final back and forth, Pete did mention that they were going to be supporting that reduced variance of 3 feet.
Okay.
But that, and then, so that was new as of, I think, last week or something to us. And it helps if we're able to find another layout that works for the site. Not a favorable one from, I guess, our standpoint for the reasons that we've talked through. But that is the minimum necessary to even be able to build a building on the site.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Pete, I want to ask you a question. So hearing what she said about why it's in the way it is, why it needs to be in this position versus these others, and knowing that the site comes with some built-in issues, would that change the staff's thinking on the request?
Well, looking at the alternative layout with the parking along the west property line, that would allow for, the whole premise behind having the circulation drive in front of the building to keep people on the property is if there's something, some hiccup with the drive-through order. So if there are parking spaces off to the west side of the drive-through lane, then they would be able to go past up to the window, and then they'd be able to pull off to the right side and theoretically wait for their large order to be ready. and be brought out versus circulating around the building. So, we understood the reason for wanting the internal circulation drive in front of the building, but we also thought, well, there's alternatives to that. So because there is alternatives, then of course staff can't support the requested variance. So, I mean, that's how we were looking at addressing that logistical question.
Okay.
Why are you submitting that as the rationale for that? What does that extra lane have to do with this conversation? Can I understand that?
So
it's like, how many times do people drive back? I think a better argument would be like, you want to get out of line because it's taken too long, versus like to have a supplemental line because there's a mix up with the order. Like, that's what makes more sense to me. So can I understand why that's being elevated or amplified right now in the rationale?
It's being elevated because with the building forward, you have to have a certain turn radius so that when you come out of the drive-through lane, you've got to be able to make the turn and then, to take that internal circulation drive in front of the building. And so as Jillian and I have gone back and forth with the building forward, that's one of the issues that they struggle with, is the turning radius is too tight.
Turn radius is too
tight. But I was also, like I said, the counter argument was, if you have parking on the west side of the drive-through lane, do you need that internal circulation drive necessarily? Are there enough other reasons why it needs to exist, I guess is another way to look at it.
So
is it- I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, finish your
I was just like, so all of the congestion is going to be contained in this space versus having to go back out into West Main and make two lefts is what we're trying to prevent. You want to keep all the drama contained in the parking lot of Panda Express. That's what I'm hearing?
Correct.
Okay,
Whether you allow that traffic to circulate back around the front of the building and not leave the site, or if there's parking provided along the west property line where they can pull out of the drive-through line and park. Those are the types of alternatives that went back and forth.
Is it going to cause, with making these like adjustments or these variances, is that going to be, when you met with MDOT, they said this was going to be like, even since we're containing all the drama in the parking lot of Panda Express, is that going to create risk for the people that are patronizing Panda Express in the parking lot? Like, what's the risk mitigation in that, now that we've contained it that way? Now what's going to happen now that we're saying yes?
With the layout that we proposed, it has that internal loop in it, in like the parking lot area, and it also provides ample travel room for a pass-through lane in the drive-through in case you do want to get out of line, or during high traffic times, they can pull back into the parking spot to wait for somebody to bring them their order out there without it backing up. And so it will all be contained, and there will be multiple points where people are able to circulate out, even if they're not going through the drive-through. Whereas if we did have the building at that setback, it's basically a one lane in and like one way out sort of a thing, unless you do go through the drive-through. And with the parking on the west side, it is a good idea in theory, but we would still need that same turning radius in order to make it into those parking spots. So you won't be able to make the turn from the drive-through order window to get to those parking spaces, because all parking has to be behind the building. And so you would end up having to make like a U-turn or like a 6-point turn or something, depending on how small your car is and how good of a driver you are.
And so like when you're coming in, like at the current did you work on the last one too?
I did not.
Okay, so when you come down, like, right, and you have to, like, the way that, whatever that little thing is, I hate that thing. So you only can go in, like, you can't be a driver like me, because you, like, it's hard. You might, you know what I'm saying? Jump
Yeah.
the curb.
Yeah.
Because it only lets you.
Yeah.
Is it going to be like that?
No, so
Come- okay.
I'm assuming you're meaning like the boxes where you order at?
Yeah.
In the
No,
back.
like I'm talking about when you come in. Tell her what I'm trying to explain. Yes.
Yeah, the one
Tell
on
her
West Niche where they have like the little T
when you're
area
trying to come in.
coming in off of West Niche.
Oh, like when you're just turning into the parking lot?
Yes. And then it's going to redirect the humans to that part to park on the west side of the property. Is it going to be that thingy?
So it's a right in and right out?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're coming from the other direction.
Correct. It's impossible to
The-
get in there.
So we do have those two drive entrances. The
Okay.
one on the east side is exit only. The one on the west side is exit only. The one on the east is entrance and exit. But we won't have
You're not
like,
gonna
the
have that
curved
thing there.
island. No.
Okay, 'cause that will
Yeah,
cause
you'll be
even
able
more
to take-
catastrophe.
If you're
Okay.
able to, I'm not as familiar with the traffic along that
Yeah.
street, but if you're able to make a left turn from that left turn lane in, you can. We won't have a curb there.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Something, Gary? Before I say anything else.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Now, so I was just thinking, you've got a 21 or something foot easement that you got to deal with. Like that's, you can't overcome that. Could you even build, knowing these problems, could you even build within the 10 to 20 foot window and still achieve everything?
No, because
So
yeah,
no
there's-
matter what, this is something that would be here even if there was this no easement, no sidewalk or whatever.
There's a storm utility easement under there. There's a lot of underground utilities right in that 10 to 20 foot.
But those necessarily aren't the problem.
Yeah.
It's the way the building
Yeah.
has to be. If you could just move the curb cuts, would that solve everything?
It still wouldn't, because with the red one that we showed, that did show us moving a curb cut to still provide parking in a safe way.
Which
That would be, it was the eastern curb cut.
you said it's on one of these drawings, maybe?
Yeah.
I have layout as proposed, compliance layout.
Oh, yours are in color.
Well, yeah, I printed out in black and white.
It would be, if I could step over there and point at it.
Yeah,
But there's signs that tell me I can't.
You're not going to be able to read my handwriting, so I don't mind you looking at it. Or there's this one. Oh, you've got color. Ooh, Mr. Fancy down there. So this would have like the curb cut move
This one
if you
has the
could.
curb cut.
But this would be in okay. That would be building the building to compliance. That's what this shows.
building it to compliance.
But it still
Doesn't
requires
fall
a
into certain-
it still requires a curb cut problem. Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. Gary?
Yeah, my message, or my question's for Pete. So staff is in support of this because of the safety issues and the safety when it comes to the traffic and pulling out on West Main both ways. Is that what I'm getting, or?
Well, staff is in support of a reduced variance because we feel that's the only, that's the only relevant way to position the building and any projections off the building outside the easements that run across the front of the property. But the other issue with those curb cuts is directly to the west, the next parcel has a curb cut that's not too far from that property corner, so that's why there's MDOT's, basically saying no to shifting any curb cut, because they already don't like the number of curb cuts that are out there along West Main. But does that answer the question?
Yeah, and it just seems to me this is very organized and much more reasonable than some of the other things out on West Main, like there's a pizza place just east of that. That's like a nightmare trying to get in and out of that place. Was it Little Caesars over there?
Yeah, I think a Little Caesars. Sorry. I believe there's a Little Caesars right next door.
Yeah, in and out, one curb cut there, and then of course you have the Rinse and Shine across the street from that, which is massive. But okay.
But they built that before the build 2 standards, right? So,
Correct.
and
Yes.
it might be actually be in a different zoning area, I don't know.
And it is in the
It
town,
is.
it is in the township,
There
technically.
you go.
Because it's across the street, is that it?
Yes, yeah, this is one of those anomalies as you go out West Main. The south side of West Main, across from this site, is within the township.
Got it.
North side is in the city of Kalamazoo.
However, there is a caveat. I live in the neighborhood, I'm in those businesses all the time. One thing that is nice that you can do when you come down Northampton, and everybody knows it's an issue. If you want to turn left off in Northampton, you're not going to do that. Don't even try. If you want to turn left, you go down to the next street to Turwell Lane where there is a light. And as the property on West Main becomes more valuable, and as these zoning issues change from commercial office to, say, a light medium business, to now attempting to move to a business like on Stadium Drive, when you turn into Little Caesars, you can cut through those back parking lots to get out to Piccadilly where there's a light. Okay, so for example, that's what I used to do when when my kids were young, we'd go there. I like to go to Tim Hortons. There's no way you're going to turn left out of there. Forget it. So what I do is I go to Tim Hortons, come out. I circle back around the parking lot. Okay, so I come out through the drive-through and say I want to go back to my house. That's not going to happen. So it's very simple. I just turn left and I go back through the drive-through. And when you start to get up to the drive-through, it splits like this. So instead of going into the drive-through, my car is here, and I just go doot, 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 and I go back behind some of those businesses on a service road. It takes me a minute, and I'm out there at a light on Piccadilly.
When you make a right, excuse me, you make a right out, okay, so pretend like you're at Tim Hortons again. You make a right, and then go behind, and then you come back around, and then you're back at the light again.
Okay. All right. I am at Tim Hortons. I get my coffee.
Yes.
I want to go back to my house, but I know better.
Yes.
I'm not even going to try that. So, but I really want that coffee.
Yes.
So I turn left within the parking lot, and I act like I'm going to the drive-through. Well, when you start to get up to the drive-through box, there's a little lane there where you can go around. It's like this big. Because people want to get out of line or, whatever. Well, you do that, bam, there's a parking lot, and you just go, and you go out to Piccadilly in 30 seconds where there's a light. When you're at that light, you can turn left or right.
The one that, you remember where McKinsey's used to be?
Yes,
That right
exactly.
there. Okay.
Yeah, so behind those, and Little Caesars is the same way. You come in and you just go back where the loading dock, you just take that back road to the light.
Yes. I understand. It's still a lot of activity, but
Sure.
that is
There's
what to do.
ways to get around that.
Yeah.
Some people might call it a service road. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
what it's,
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
yeah. So would Panda Express be able to do something like that, Pete?
That's smart. You understand what she's saying, Pete?
Yeah, I do, and that is, coordinating cross-access with adjacent properties is definitely something they can talk with the other property owners
Yeah.
about, but they
Yeah.
have,
That's
but they
what
all
needs to
have to
happen.
agree to
Yeah.
This
do
is the
that.
problem, the marijuana shop, 2 months, maybe 3 months ago, where they wanted to build over here, and the property next to them was like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
You can't use our driveway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what needs
So it's dependent upon that.
that's
Sure, come on up.
That was smart,
I see your hand.
Right. Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
Shelby wants you to hit the microphone.
Yeah, Jillian, if you could speak to that, that would be good.
Yeah, we did look at providing cross-access connection in previous iterations, and both neighboring property owners denied it.
They said
So,
what?
They denied.
And what were those property, we used to go, we go to Advia, and I know where that bank is,
Yeah,
so
it's that
who
credit
told you
union,
no?
and then there's that older strip mall.
Yeah, that's strip mall.
So it has.
Presumably the one with the Little Caesars in it.
I think it's the one with the Little Caesars, and I think, yeah, and the hair salon.
Yeah.
I think it's a hair salon. I don't know. I just got it.
Okay, so Advia told you no? Wow.
Oh, there you go.
Everybody likes Panda Express, and we would rather have a nice business in our neighborhood instead of a broken, empty building, you know, so.
Your fire
That is
department
true.
wants to use it for bomb squad training too, if that helps anything.
That actually doesn't help your case. I kind of like that idea.
It helps for me, it
It
does.
makes your city safer in a safe way.
Thank you.
All right, I think we've probably discussed
Yeah.
the stuff
So they told you no?
to this point.
right.
Can we just move on to the motion on the finding of fact then? Thank you.
I move that the finding of facts for 4300 West Main Street shall include all information included in the notice of public hearing dated May 29th, 2024, in the agenda packet staff provided for this request. 29 notices of public hearing were sent and 0 responses were received. Jillian Benegilio, representing Panda Express with Atwell. Expressed some concerns about the congestion with the patrons, the drive-through, and wanting to keep the loading areas separated. There are 2 existing curb cuts, and MDOT has insisted that they be kept as is. This gives them limited flexibility. Drive-through, they want to do drive-through, looking for an internal circulation road. The staff is, the city staff is supporting a 3-foot easement instead of the 18 feet that Panda Express is looking for, being that that would be the minimum variance adjustment that could be done to make this work. Parking would need to be along the drive-through on the west side, as other restaurants in the area, even though it's not the most desirable, we could do that. There's been some concerns expressed with the zoning. The zoning for that property was commercial office, and it's been that way, say, for over 30 some odd years. So in October of 2023, the zoning changed to commercial CC2, which is a less intense business, because West Main, the speed limit is lower. West Main isn't Stadium Drive. We've got a lot of pedestrians, residential neighborhoods, both in the city and the township in that area. The front of the building is supposed to be within this range. Mr. Khan spoke in favor of the variance, representative from Panda Express continued to reiterate that without the full variance being granted, it presents significant challenges through drive-through users. Concern of the drive-through traffic spilling out into West Main, They want to create a lane in front of the building to kind of keep everything in the parking area. Let's see, some discussion. We already talked about the rezoning and that the applicant was aware when they purchased the property that it had moved from commercial office to CC2. Concerns with the width of the site, when we talked about a design change, trying to find a way to make it work, that the width of the site makes the design change unfeasible. They can't use part of the easement as a portion of the drive-through, can't have payment there. They really want to have a driving lane in front of the building, discussion about why it can't be wider versus deep, parking on the other side of the drive-through is an issue. Could find a way to make it work, but it's not ideal to do that. Some discussion about extended pickup orders. Where are those people going to wait? How are they going to get out if they don't want to be there? If there's a question with their order, the staff suggested the 3-foot as the minimum action that could be taken. With a new design, that might be something that could happen. Let's see. Discussion about the turn radius from the drive-through. Applicant feels it's too tight. Parking on the west side still isn't ideal. They want that internal circulation lane. Absolutely cannot move the curb cuts. MDOT is got the final say on that. There was some discussion about, I'm not quite sure what the term is, but the example that I gave was some of the other businesses having access to, Mr. Eldridge, what is that called? The little area behind businesses, what's that called if you?
Oh, the shared access.
Okay, all right, shared access. And unfortunately, Advia and another business told them no, that they would not give them shared access so people could go back through that. And that's it.
Do we have a second?
I support the finding of fact with one correction. Panda Restaurant Group doesn't own the property, correct? It's Mike Seeley, and you're coming in to rent the property, and is that correct? Okay.
Oh, Mike Seeley owns it. Okay.
Thank you. So you're supporting it with that correction. Does Beth accept that correction then?
Yes, I accept.
Thank you. Do we need, that should clear that one, right, Charlie? Making sure the motion and everything is good.
If we have the maker of the motion approving it and second the motion.
Then we should be
The
good.
second to motion approving it as well, then we're good.
All right. Do we need any discussion on the finding of fact? Gary already did his discussion point. Or can we just vote? Looks like we're going to vote. Do you need this as a roll call vote, Pete?
No, I do not.
Thank you. All those in favor of the specifics finding of fact, please signify by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? There are none. Can I have a motion and a second regarding this, the pending request?
I second that.
He'll make the motion. Somebody else second it.
I second it.
Thank you. That's to approve the variance request, et cetera, et cetera. I guess I'll go first, and then Beth can chime in. Or whoever. You don't have to. Look, I'm going to be a no, unfortunately. I know lots of people want the Panda Express to come in. I hope this does not scare them off, but I'm going to be a no, and I have 3 reasons written down. One relates to, I think, items number 4 and 5 of the staff report, which address the new zoning changes. They are new and they were done for a reason, and I understand the argument about trying to, hey, give us a break and let us be like the buildings that are already there, but obviously when they change the zoning, they don't want those buildings like that anymore. They want them different. And if we approve this variance, then every variance along West Main has to be approved under the same logic. Like, we have locked ourselves into that, which runs counter to the whole point of the zoning. That's point number, actually 1 and 2 are the same thing. The other thing is, she said they just kind of can't comply with any of the zoning without a variance, which means maybe, I'm sad to say, maybe Panda Express is not right for this location then, and that's the zoning. So I'm going to be voting no. But if you want to put a Panda Express there, I'm perfectly happy to have it. Beth, did you have anything? Gary?
I'm
Go for
voting
it.
yes, because I have so many thoughts on this, but
We'll start with the first one.
the first one is that I think that this is what's available to us right now in terms of what the real estate is. And this is a good, when people come in, I see it differently, Chair, when you're saying that everybody else that comes in, they're going to be able to, we're beholden to this particular, vote because we're setting a precedent for that. And all the disposition of all the properties won't match this. So I don't necessarily see it that way. I think that we are not setting a precedent, even if we are setting a precedent to take each individual case before us in a way that we consider it and we allow them to come in and do the best that they can to shapeshift themselves to work within the confines of what the existing real estate options are. It's going to be better for our community because it's better. This is better than what would be there currently, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree it would be a better use of the I agree it would be a better use of the site than what is there now.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to just negate zoning just because it would be a better use for it to be this versus that. The whole point of the zoning is to get to some amount of uniformity of appearance and of walkability and all of these other things that Pete talks about when he gives the report. And I'm sorry that the site has some limitations and they can be worked with. That's what, staff supports going outside of that because there are actual limitations built into the site. Limitations the applicant, to me, is bringing up are not site related. They're business related, and this particular business related. There's a reason for the zoning. Those people above us that put us on this board were elected and to make those kinds of decisions. They voted the will of the people, and while we can be variable in circumstances, this does not appear to be one of those. And I also was going to mention before, the marijuana shop that's I don't know if it's still going to go there on the corner of Stockbridge and Portage. They came in and said, well, we need all this extra space because we want security and we're going to have all this business and this, that, and the other. And we told them no. And I know I keep looking at Pete, but we told them no. And for consistency's sake, I'm sort of hemmed into this kind of mindset. So that's why I'm there. And I do think that if you do this, you do set that bad precedent that Charlie's going to be in court dealing with repeatedly when we say no to everybody else and they go and say, well, you said yes to Panda Express, so here's our lawsuit. We'll see you in court.
Well, let them come. We live in a litigious society anyway, whatever. If you want to fight, let's do it. I'm saying, we create all kind of options for so many different other kind of people. I'm yes. I'm yes for y'all. Yes.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes. Go ahead, Beth. I'll be voting in favor. I think it's the highest and best use for the location. And I guess I have a little bit of a problem with the city of Kalamazoo on the north end of the street and the township on the south end of the street, and zoning is such over here. They have restaurants over on that side. And over on the other side, you know, they have some restaurants, they're a little different, but yeah. So anyway, I feel like it should mix a little better, like click a little better, I think. So I'm in favor.
Thanks, Gary.
Unfortunately, this isn't something that I can support for all of the reasons that Joe has shared. To me, that's a very serious issue. If we grant this variance, what does that say for all of the other businesses coming? It sets a very dangerous precedent to me. I don't feel that the citizens in that neighborhood, that it's best for them. Absolutely not. You know, to go, and I've said this earlier, and I guess I feel the need to say it again, but, you know, this isn't a surprise to Mr. Seeley. His businesses are on Stadium Drive. This is not Stadium Drive. The intention of this neighborhood is to honor that and respect it and the people that live there, and all the walking and the churches and the houses and the things that the neighborhood and there's a 10-acre green space park just 1 block in. We're having a giant event in August with 500 people that come to that. That's not what this neighborhood is about with the speed limit. So to go from commercial office to CC2 and then try to bump it up to this commercial business like is on Stadium Drive in good conscience, whether I live in that neighborhood or not, I can't support that. I don't, no. No, I will not be supporting this.
Are we in discussion or are we in vote?
We're in discussion.
Okay, when you say commercial office, Beth, what do you think a better use of this space would be right now? Like, are we gonna wait? Is your mentality to like wait for a more appropriate fit based on what the zoning, is that what your like mindset is surrounding your vote?
Well, yes,
Okay.
because if it's that property is extremely valuable.
Yeah.
If it's not Mr. Seeley renting out a Panda Express, it'll be something else. And there's a huge difference in your neighborhood between having a bank or a doctor's office versus having a business, a commercial business that isn't even a CC2, which is a lighter one and more consumer and neighborhood kid friendly type place.
Okay.
And, you know, again, if it's not Panda Express, it'll be something else is going to come into that. And that credit union or that bank that's there, that it's been a bank for over 30 years. We've gone there. And the building is, even though it's vacant, it's well maintained. It's not like the Long John Silver's just across the way in Ashtamo that had a fire 4 years ago that's boarded up. You know, this bank, if you weren't looking for it, it's not an eyesore.
Yeah. So.
No, I was going to ask Pete, does Kalamazoo Township run all the way along West Main, at least down to the highway? On that side of the road?
No.
No, it does.
It's everywhere.
It does
Yeah.
not. It runs down to North Sage Street.
I don't know the name of, I don't know which
So
one is
anyways,
Sage
yeah, so it
Street.
basically goes another, let's call it 2 blocks. It goes further west from where Piccadilly is at, which is shown on your map.
So it's gonna grab like where the Jersey Mike's and that little place is.
Jersey Mike's over there? Where?
It's on West-
That's across the street.
I'm across the street. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Right.
does the Kalamazoo Township portion I'm getting my directions mixed up. Across the street from it, does that go, how far down does that go?
It's shown on the, I mean, it does give you an idea if you look at the map in the back of the packet.
And
but-
part of
well,
the
it's just-
reason I'm asking that is if you go down along West Main, on the opposite side of the road, there's like buildings way back from the road. There's some up, they're just kind of willy-nilly all over the place. And this is trying to get away from that. Sorry, that maybe didn't
Right.
help anybody, but in my mind, it was my
And-
curiosity.
Remy, I have something I'd like to add to your question. Your question was a very good one. Something that I would like you all to consider too with this area. This is a perfect example here. So say we were to grant this variance. Okay, so we're going from commercial office, bypassing CC2, and going to a giant commercial like on Stadium Drive. Well, say 2 businesses down, okay? Now you're on Northampton, okay? Well, there is a giant, and Pete can speak to this in front of the Westwood Christian Reformed Church. Their frontage is that 15 acres, 10?
It isn't
It's
quite
huge.
that large. It's at least 5 acres of
Okay.
vacant
Okay.
property that'll be developed.
All right, so we have this church, and they've got a 5-acre green space. It's very, very deep. You know, you could probably get 5 or 6 Walgreens stacked back. That's how deep it is. Well, that property has gone up in value in the past 40 years to, I will say, multi-million. So it was a church. It was zoned for that. It's in a residential neighborhood. They want to sell off their frontage. Okay, I understand that. So it was the church, commercial office, okay? Offices aren't necessarily making a lot of money. They don't want to be there. Well, now it's changed to commercial. So if we were to grant them that variance to have a business, then somebody else could come down and put in a giant Big Lots or a Dollar Tree.
In the area where the church was.
Exactly.
Approach upon.
Yes. So you would have the Panda Express, if we change the zoning, I'm just going to call it, made it full commercial, okay? And then you'd go down, say, 2 other businesses, 3 at the most. You've got that giant green space where the church is. So if somebody else came in and said, well, you know, we don't want to be CC2, we want to have an AutoZone or another Walgreens, or, you know, and the frontage is so long on that property, you could have 2 or 3 businesses there. It's huge. That lot is wide, very wide and very deep.
But we're only dealing with this that's in front of us. We could,
Yeah, but it sets
we
the
could say
precedent.
that another church wants to go in there too. We don't know. We don't have any idea.
Yeah, and
To the other lot.
I think I agree with that. And what I think I'm considering is that, so, you know, we got a puppy, Mushu, and I came to this community like 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago, as a student. And that whole area over there, where like that Maple Hill area, like it was like thriving. Like there was a mall, it was like a mall there, and then like on the left-hand side when you're coming where the Long John Silver's was, like all of that was like, there was like business there, and it looked nice and it was well kept. So Mushu this weekend, I had to emergency get him groomed, and I went over to that area, and it's completely like different now. It's like the businesses are not popping. And I think that having this new business over there could like reinvigorate that aspect of like West Main, because it looks sad and scary and dilapidated like over there now. You know, it's
Where
like-
Burlington Coat Factory is,
All of
and
that
with
over
Marshalls,
like, well, no, across the street where
where Lowe's is.
no, when you're coming down where Long John Silver's was, that used to be like a very, like, where they want to put this Panda Express would catalyze more development down that street. Do you don't see it that way?
I guess it depends on what type of development.
So,
You know, I
across-
see where you're, I see
You know what
where
I'm
you're.
saying? Like, I think that we're in a space in our community, like, we know how I feel about green space preservation, how I feel about small businesses, and how I feel about us selectively enforcing, like, you know, zoning ordinances on behalf of like major developers. Like, I have been consistent about that. And I also don't think we should throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think that we can preserve neighborhoods and the integrity of neighborhoods, and also encourage more business to come in. And we can still have our vote and shape like the tone and the philosophical bent of our collectivized voice to say exactly what you're saying now. Like, we want to preserve our neighborhood and the integrity of our neighborhood. And we don't want like churches to be displaced for big lots and stuff. I mean, you know, so it'll make our neighborhood be weird now. I think we can do both. And I'm trying to develop like my voting, like, I hope that my voting history will reflect the expanse of like what we can do and be creatively as a board. I hope that I'm voting in those ways, and I believe you do also, especially like I think we vote our values, you know, about these kind of things. And so I was curious to hear your thoughts about that, but I do want to hear more from you about like, why won't this catalyze business in an area? So when I was talking about taking Mushu, like, it looks scary and sad to me taking him over to the groomer over there this weekend. And I was like, oh, this is sad, because I remember when I was like bustling over here. So now when I saw that, when I read through the packet, I was like, oh, this could be really cool for this area, like to have like a Panda Express, because everybody wants to come to Panda Express, you know, to have it over here and to catalyze more development on this street on West Main, because we need that in Kalamazoo. We need West Main to be popping. We need it.
Well, I think it'll help. They just need to conform.
So your point is like across the street, the Davenport College, which was office, that went under and sat vacant for years.
Yep.
And then so they sold it. And
We have a car
it went
wash.
into, yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
But-
Well, you know how I feel about the car wash. I thought that was
We all
whack,
feel
but,
like that about the car
like,
wash, but it's retail, so.
yeah, I think we can vote. Like, I think we can vote when we have those things come before us. Like, I didn't like the Asylum Lake when they tried to put the car wash over there. I stood back here for hours with the rest of our community. Like, I mean, no, I think we should just say what we want. That's why we're on the constituent board. We could just say yes and no to certain things. I think Panda Express is a good, it's a good choice.
Did you guys have anything you wanted to add?
No.
Or are we've beaten this horse to death by now? I just don't want to repeat myself if I do.
Yeah. I like all the points that are made.
No, unfortunately, no. That portion's closed.
Okay, do y'all got anything?
I like the points that you've all made. It's good.
Thank you.
I appreciate all the points that have been made. It's been very helpful.
Well, this is going to be a surprise to us what the outcome is.
Okay.
Pete, take the vote. Please.
We'll start with Vanden Hamburg,
No.
Wark,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
McReynolds,
Yes.
Hahn,
Yes.
Holder.
No. I believe that the variance request is approved 4-2.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm going to fix the laptop real quick for the next
Okay.
group. The new
Well-
laptop, and I got to fix the setting on there so that it stays on.
Okay. Well, while you're doing that, why doesn't the secretary read the second request
I
in
can do
for
it.
us?
All right. I got this one back. Thank you. All right. An application for a variance for provisions of the zoning has been filed with the zoning board by Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy. Yes. And they're requesting the applicant, ZBA number -11 3401 Nazareth Road at 3401 Nazareth Road. The applicant is requesting a variance from the Natural Features Protection Ordinance, Chapter 50-6.2H, to allow construction of non-motorized trails within the Bow in the Clouds Nature Preserve. Am I saying that right? Bow in the Clouds Nature Preserve? Okay.
Bow in the clouds.
Okay, thank you. To encroach it into a protected slope, which has a grade greater than 20% and protected slope setback. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Pete's still working on that.
Should I say that last part?
What?
Please note that this
Oh, yeah.
request will not change the zoning classification of the properties.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're right. I always try to cut you off
That's
before you
okay.
get to that part.
All right, Land Conservancy. What do y'all think?
That's where I live, Stuart Downs. You do? Yeah, I live on-
Oh, down there by the highway is Oshtemo, isn't it? Oh, yeah, I know.
On Stafford Road. Okay.
Nice. So I wanted to sell the property.
Yes, because you got that little turn in there that you're going to, you know, and it's all.
But no, I mean,
Oh, okay, that was her farmhouse?
Yeah, well, that was her farmhouse, then she owned all the land there.
Okay, and I can't throw Canterbury.
and I don't like how far that
Grand Prairie, you hit Drake, and then there's that old farmhouse.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's
Yeah.
the Bronson place.
Yes.
She stayed there.
Okay, looks like the computer's working, so go ahead and say your name and
It's what we have.
Ellen Frey.
Good evening.
good evening.
Very grateful.
My name's Ken Paragon. I'm with OCBA Landscape Architects.
Thank you.
That's Peregon. And I want to talk to you about Bow in the Clouds Nature Preserve, which is over on the east side of town at 3401 Nazareth, as you are, I'm sure, quite aware. The slide in front of you represents what's there. The pink line is the overall boundary of the property. The dashed line, can you see my cursor if I do this? You can't, can you? No. Okay, so there's a dashed line that cuts off the top rectangle of the property.
Oh, there it is. Sort of blue dashes, okay.
Yeah,
Or white.
that rectangle at the top edge of the property is actually in Kalamazoo Township. So that dashed line represents the boundary between the city and the township.
Oh,
And then the blue line is Spring Valley Creek, is that the right name? Yeah. Spring Valley Creek, and then the orange lines represent the existing trail system. And we are proposing to expand the existing trail system. We built a phase one of the trail system in 2019. This is a second phase to overhaul the entire system. This was originally planned to happen pre-COVID, but guess what? COVID stopped everything in its tracks. We've worked closely with the Kalamazoo Department of Public Services during the design to allow their service vehicles onto the site. The city has a legal easement to get to the existing sanitary collector sewer, but there's no access. It's been there 40 years, and they've never touched it because they can't get to it. The trails are also being designed with universal access standards for community use, low grades, firm and stable surface, resting areas, aggregate surfacing. We're requesting a variance for relief from the protected slope standard. As I said, the sanitary sewer manholes are inaccessible without impacting the slopes. And you'll note that the Natural Features Protection Ordinance does allow maintenance of existing impervious surfaces and structures on a slope. We will use core coconut mats and native seed mixes to stabilize the slopes. We have already obtained an Eagle wetland permit for work in the wetlands, although we are likely to need an amendment because we've greatly reduced the amount of work in the wetland that we want to do. And we're aware of other permits and agreements we need to get into with soil erosion control and et cetera. And we're hoping to build this yet this year. Just a couple slides of existing conditions. This slide shows the entranceway and the existing trail up on the upper part of the property. And this slide is from the western edge of the upland, taken from an overlook deck that looks over the wetland. We want to build trails that'll get us from the elevation of the boardwalk or the overlook deck down to the wetland that you see in the distance below. So we've got 30 or 40 feet of elevation change we're trying to make up. And that's just a view of one of the area of the slopes that we're trying to get a trail through for both pedestrians and the service vehicles. And this is an existing trail on the northwest side of the creek. And in that area, we're essentially going to improve the existing trail. We're not moving it. We're just going to make it better in its current location. And then once we get to the wetland, we're going to replace this boardwalk, and that's a little bridge that goes over the creek. There's another one that we're going to replace also. All the new structures will be steel fabrication, wood-decked steel frame. This diagram represents the trail system. The dark lines that you can see are the proposed trails. I'm not sure if you can see a difference in the width of the trail that's up. Oops, did I move it? I didn't mean to move it. I did it again. I'm not going to move that. There's a trail that runs basically east-west, a little zigzaggy. That trail is proposed to be 10 feet wide. It's that width because the Public Services Department wants to be able to drive their big vacuum truck on that. And then to allow them to clean out those manholes. And then the rest of the trail is designed to be 6 feet wide. And the intent is that they will drive their big vacuum truck to the intersections of where the loop trail goes further to the north, stop there, then they have a machine that they call an easement machine. That's basically a big hose reel, motorized hose reel that they can drive down to the manholes. The manholes are the red dots that you see, and there's actually a sixth one, I think it's the sixth one that's just off the map to the lower left. So we're trying to get them as close to those manholes as possible, with the exception of the one up in the upper right-hand corner. They can access that from Nazareth Road. That's their intent. The rest of them, we're trying to get the trail is right to those manholes, and that's a main driver in the layout of the trail system, as well as the universal access and very low slopes.
Yeah.
The natural features inventory identifies the steep slopes. I don't think I'll bother to try to point them out, but there are a few areas that we are touching some protected slopes. Our intent is to do that as gently as possible. Wherever possible, our trail will follow the existing grade and will have gentle side slopes. That's just a little bit larger look at the portion that's actually in the city. Again, the area that we're really going to need to impact the protected slopes is the sort of in the middle. There's a line that's kind of north-south, up and down. That stretch is on a fairly steep side slope. That's the area where we're most likely to impact protected slopes. Let's see. We understand that the current zoning of the property permits recreation, and we believe that the existing slopes, it's unavoidable to impact the existing slopes to provide both pedestrian access at a universal design standard and access for the Public Service Department and their vehicles. We need to impact those slopes. The impact has been minimized through the design process. We've tried really hard to stay away from them as much as possible, but and as I said earlier, the trails will follow the existing grade or existing slope to the extent possible. And if you're not familiar with the Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy, stewardship of the land is like their highest priority. That's the reason for existing. They wouldn't be here if they weren't going to protect the land. And they'll do the stabilization of the disturbed slopes, and they'll be using all native plant materials to blend in with the existing natives that they've been introducing. They've been working on habitat improvements, wildlife habitat improvements on this site for longer than Mitch has been working for them, probably. So we appreciate if you'd consider the variance. And Mitch Letow from the Land Conservancy is here. I don't know if you want to add anything?
You did a great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pete, staff comments?
Yeah, so Ken Paragon touched on about everything in the staff report. So again, these are, an expansion of the existing trail network, non-motorized. They are going to add universal access, which means they're going to be widening the trails to allow for, those, like a, what would you call it? Like a power wheelchair that, that could handle a gravel trail, that sort of thing. And one of the, what has really been helpful, at least to the Public Services Department and the city in general, is their willingness to work with us. There are sewer lines that traverse the property that have not been properly maintained because the city cannot get their equipment back to where these manhole accesses are. And so, as you saw on the layout for the trails, there's a section that has the wider trails was mentioned. And that's where the utility truck will be able to go back into the property. Yes, right there. So you can see from the parking lot extending all the way to the far west side of the loop that goes around the northern part of the property, how thick that the outline of the trail is. So, and then that will also extend to the south too, where they'll be able to use smaller equipment and get to those manholes. So in addition to that, I just wanted to reiterate that this was before the Natural Features Protection Review Board on May 28th, and they unanimously supported a variance to allow the expansion of the trails with the minor encroachments proposed in the slope and slope setback areas. And as you noticed in the staff report, the under findings, the review criteria differs when it comes to natural features protection, variances versus dimensional variances or use variances. And so, our summary concluded that, that this is something that does meet all four of the review criteria, and staff supports the granting of the variance. And of course, staff supported this when it was before the Natural Features Protection Review Board as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go out on a limb and say nobody in the House is here to speak in favor or against it. So Pete will look and see if we've got any call-ins, unless somebody runs up at the last minute and says they're against it or in favor of it.
All right, I'm checking on. Okay, we have no call-in comments related to this request tonight.
Excellent, thank you. So that closes the public hearing portion. Now is the time for discussion. I have some questions. Most of the stuff about the trails is not really before us. It's really this north-south portion that touches the slope. Is that basically it?
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time?
Well, he's got the map up here, and it's, you know, got the thick trail, the thinner trail, but I think I heard that only like this slight north-south portion here, sort of middle leftish of the map, is really the only thing that's before us, because that's the only thing that really touches the slope, right?
I'll let Ken clarify that. So you're what you're looking at.
Like what I'm getting at is all this
the-
other green basically is just indicating where new construction is or new improvements, and they don't really need us to tell them yes or no. It's that one section there that when you did the detail, I think a couple of slides up or a slide up, you said that one there, because you said, oh, this one that goes north to south just at the top here.
Yeah.
That's the slope. Like all the rest of this kind of doesn't impact, but that's the issue. That's what we're here about.
I think that's the primary area. There might be 2 square feet up in the, where the trail just crosses the boundary between the city and the township. It's hard to tell from, I can't see it well
But
enough to tell.
just
There's
to
a little bit
clarify,
there.
like we're not approving widening trails.
No.
We're not approving putting in any of these other ones. It's really because that one kind of has to touch a slope. That's the extent of what we're here for.
There's also in that loop that goes to the southwest, lower left, the existing trail that you saw, it's not very wide.
Yeah.
The side slopes adjacent to it are also within the protected zone. Are we going to touch that a little bit to get it from a 3 feet thing to 6 feet? Maybe.
But basically,
the primary area is the one you
a
pointed
small portion of the overall project is what we have to worry about.
Yeah,
Thank
I think
you.
that's accurate.
Thank you. I mean, that really answers my question about this thing. Anybody need any other discussion on this request before we move to the finding of fact? Anybody? Tony, you going to make a motion for the finding of fact?
Yes.
So, there's not going to be any more discussion.
We can discuss before the vote, unless do you have any questions about it before we get to the finding of fact?
No, I don't think so.
Because I'm sure we'll all, have our say on why we want to do it or why we don't want to do it.
Yeah, okay.
I move that the finding of facts for 3401 Nazareth Road, which shall include all information included in the notice of public hearing dated May 29th, 2024, and the agenda package staff have provided for this request. There were 30 notice of public hearing was sent out, 0 responses were received. And some of the facts that we had talked about, Ken had mentioned that, the trails were going to be extended, be wider, 6 feet wider. Also, we had talked about that, they were trying to get to these manholes and they were providing access to these manholes that haven't been provided access from before. They need to get to that, so that'll be a good thing. Also, the NFP board approved it, you know, along with 4 other areas of approval. There'll be no trees movement. I seen that. You know, there'll be coconut mats and all that stuff provided for seeds and all that stuff for native stuff to be moved back in, so everything's gonna be kind of the same as it was before. I think that's about it for the moving of the facts.
Somebody second that, please.
I second.
Any discussion on the finding of fact? No, let's take a vote. All those in favor of that as being the finding of fact, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody, aye. Any opposed? No opposed, that passes. There's our finding of fact. Do we want to make a motion on adopting the request? Somebody, and then we can discuss it. I can't move or I would do it. Charlie told me not to.
I can move in.
I'm going to tell you that again, too.
I motion to adopt the request.
I second it.
Excellent. Any discussion? Well, my discussion on it is this. The staff report is pretty thorough as to my reasons. I don't need to reiterate them. I can just adopt them. And the only reason I asked about the amount of the work that affects us is just to point out that it is as small as is humanly possible for this particular project. And that's why I'm voting in favor.
Me too. I love this project because I think that this is demonstrative of what I thought that the role of the Natural Features Protection Board was going to be, but I think this embodies this idea that we're working in collaboration with nature to make it be more expansive and better and easier for human use, and it's centering the land though and the preservation of the land, but it's doing like what's minimally necessary to be able to make us work cohesively to steward the property. I think it's a yes. The answer is yes, and I'm grateful for this case to be brought before us. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'll be supporting this. The fact that it went through NFP, they approved it. You worked with Eagle, they approved it, and I certainly appreciate everything Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy is doing.
Anybody else want to chime in?
I think this is fantastic, and I will be voting in support. And I just love that the expansion of this and the inclusive nature about making things better and the whole, you know, people in motorized carts and things like that will have more access, and that's what we're all about.
That's good.
You folks? Or Pete, you can just move on to taking the vote.
We'll start again with Vanden Humber,
Yes.
Wark,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
McReynolds,
Yes.
Hahn,
Yes.
Bowler.
Yes. I count 6 in favor, 0 against. The request is approved. Congratulations, gentlemen. Thank you for your patience staying this long.
Thank you for coming.
If you haven't been out here, I highly recommend it. It's a great spot.
Lovely.
Can I just pull this out? You okay?
Yeah, just go ahead and, yep, go ahead and pull that out. I'll just close it out when I come down there.
Well, that closes our regular
Thank you.
business, but we have other business.
We do.
I'm excited about this.
I bought this on Amazon with some little tabs for Robert's Rules of Order. You would be proud of me. Oh, Lord.
So you can take copious
Thank
notes.
you. I don't know about that, but thank you. Copious notes.
Yes.
All right.
I'm scared.
I mean, I haven't read Robert's Rules of Order, but isn't one of the rules that you don't let the rules necessarily get in the way of a good discussion and meeting?
Oh, is that really true?
I don't know.
Did y'all learn that in law school?
No, we did not.
Okay. I asked that before. I couldn't.
I don't know if you asked it before.
No?
of me.
Okay.
But no, they do not teach you Robert's Rules of Order. Because the only order in court comes from the judge.
From the judge. All right. Okay, we have 25 slides, so I'm gonna try to make it to get a soda.
That is why I did not
at
print them.
Chick-fil-A. Oh, that's my favorite. I see.
That's a big street.
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna run to the bathroom while they're messing with the computer.
No. What you got? And you got your soda too? Oh, you got water. Okay. I hear you. I understand. Did you try the soda at Chick-fil-A yet? Did I? Because I talked to you. It's the ice and the soda. That's not. You're not feeling it. You need your McDonald's. Okay. Yes. I know what you're talking about. Yes, it's important.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Helen.
Cart the doors?
Thank you, Helen.
I understand. Do you get extra ice? Yes. Yes. I always get extra ice on everything.
And that's how
Sometimes I just, I don't like the ice in it, so I like to go home. I like to have more.
Of the soda,
Go
yeah.
home and
Put
pour
your
in
own.
2 cups.
Yeah, that's how you
Because
do
if you take the ice out,
You're
it's like
talking
It's true. That is true.
So they really ripping you off,
It takes away from the experience, though.
which is true. But they know they can rip
She
you
had
off.
that
by
social-
putting this-
No, see, that's smart. Ask for extra ice in the next cup up.
They kind of, right.
and
And
they
said no.
Back in the day, we
That's-
used to
that's
go
how you do
to,
that. That's smart.
we used to go to a store, get a white cup with ice. Just
Yep,
a cup.
yep.
And then go,
Then you prepare,
go
yep.
McDonald's or something, and then pour, you're like, oh, I don't want no ice, and then pour that in there, and then you're like, okay, I got some extra ice, pour it in there.
Yeah. When I was pregnant with Tegan, I was like the Mountain Dew connoisseur. That's exactly what I used to do. I get a certain cup, extra ice. I had I liked hospital ice.
Are you waiting for us, Charlie?
we gotta wait for.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, he wants some.
And then
Oh,
I used to-
okay. All right, sure.
and then pour the soda. You have to tilt the soda so you could get the bubbles still.
Yeah, yeah.
So that matters. Soda's a serious situation.
Okay.
It's
Robert's Rules
it's
of
a
Order.
thing. It is.
Oh, did I make a motion to recess? Oh,
Here we go.
all right.
Is this a part of the meeting?
Professional development.
Yeah,
Is this
yes,
being
this is part of the
televised?
meeting.
Oh, okay.
You can't just get up and leave.
Okay.
Are we on
all right.
tape?
Are people
Are we on
YouTube
tape?
watching this?
Yeah, yes, this is,
Here we go.
the viewing audience is still watching, just to
Oh,
clarify.
Okay. All right.
There are-
We're
there are
being
probably-
taped.
there are
All right.
probably ones of people watching this.
He know that. He don't see. Go ahead, Attorney Bear. Yes.
All right, for those viewing who may not know me, I'm Charlie Bear. I am the city attorney of the city of Kalamazoo. And parliamentarian. Your board, as well as provide legal advice. The city of Kalamazoo has adopted Robert's Rules of Order as the rules of procedure for all the city's boards and commissions. Periodically, the city attorney's office has made a presentation on Robert's Rules. As a refresher for those familiar with the rules, or to familiarize members who may not be familiar with those rules of procedure. it came to staff's attention that we hadn't done one of these in a while. In fact, it's been like 13 years. So we decided maybe it was about time to do another one. Tonight's presentation, I didn't do this when I presented this to the Planning Commission last week, but I should have. The materials that you have in this presentation is based in a significant part on the presentation given by Clyde Robinson, former city attorney, 13 years ago. The rules haven't necessarily changed a lot, and Clyde's materials were quite good, particularly when we get into procedures for presenting motions. But I do want to give Clyde credit.
Excuse me.
When I started getting into Robert's rules, I wondered, who on earth is Robert and why did he write down these rules? Well, Henry Martin Robert was a career Army officer. He was an engineer, became the first chief of the Army Corps of Engineers. He was very active in church and civic work. He attended a lot of disorganized and chaotic meetings and decided there's got to be a better way to do this. So he went to the largest bookstore in town, which happened to be in San Francisco at that time. That's where he was stationed. Didn't find those particularly helpful, so he came up with his own rules based on the rules and procedures of the United States Congress, and the first publication of Robert's Rules of Order was in 1876. Why do we use parliamentary procedure? Well, the bylaws say we have to. Yeah. Is that a good reason? Well, it's a reason. It's not the best reason. Primarily, Robert's rules provide organization to a meeting of a deliberative body, like this one. A body that receives information and makes decisions on that information. Keeps things organized and moving. It provides an orderly, focused debate and discussion, resulting in a vote or decision of the majority. And it establishes a record for precedent or appeal. We'll get into that a little more later in the presentation. We are going to discuss the basics. Robert's Rules of Order are now in the 12th edition, 633 pages plus tables. This is intended and designed for boards, commissions, clubs, meetings of all shapes and sizes and makeups. Some needing more complexity, some needing less. Even according to the people that compile Robert's rules, say for smaller boards, and the city boards and commissions are considered a smaller board, we don't need the complexity and the formality of all of the rules. So we can simplify things. In fact, the Robert's Rules people estimate that 80% of the time, a smaller board or commission uses maybe 20% of the rules. In my experience, 20 plus years dealing with municipal boards and commissions, I would say the percentage of rules used is probably smaller than that, and the time you use that smaller percentage is a little greater. So we're going to cover the basics, dealing with motions, deliberation and discussion of motions, changing motions, voting or not, postponing action, reconsideration of action, and then recessing and adjournment of meetings. Motions are a proposal to take certain actions. It's how business gets done under Robert's Rules of Order. We have two general classifications, main motions and secondary motions. The main motion is what introduces business. And knowing what a main motion is or going to be for us is usually pretty simple because we have an agenda, and that's our agenda items. Secondary motions introduce matters to be addressed before a vote on the main motion. They direct procedural steps, they can revise the motion, and address other matters. So because secondary motions deal with things that need to be considered before a decision on the main motion, they take precedence over the main motion and have to be acted on before the main motion. Robert's Rules divides secondary motions into subsidiary motions, privileged motions, incidental motions. I have listed in the slides a discussion of those categories and the motions listed under them and what precedents they fall in. Because most of those motions you're not likely to see or deal with very often. We are going to proceed down to slide 14 and start discussing main motions in the procedure for a main motion. To make a main motion, a member needs to be recognized by the chair. Once recognized, the member states the motion. So for example, I move that a special use permit as requested by the Smith brothers to operate a kennel for ferrets at 829 West Cedar be approved. Once that's done, another member doesn't need to be recognized by the chair, should say second. If there is no second, then the motion dies. Now keep in mind, making a motion and a second only puts the subject matter of the motion before the board to consider. You're not stating whether you're for it or against it. In fact, you can make a motion to approve a particular matter and then vote against it. You can second it and vote against it. You're simply getting that topic before the board for discussion. And you say second, you don't say support, because that implies agreement to the proposed action. If you want to support a matter, you vote for it. As we have discussed, as Joe mentioned earlier, the chair does not make motions, but can request or suggest a motion. For example, the chair will entertain a motion to whatever the appropriate motion may be. We always want motions to be stated in the affirmative, so that a yes vote approves or authorizes something. So, for example, if our example motion here, that a special use permit be granted, if that was to say, I move that a special use permit be denied, and the vote on that motion to deny the special use permit failed, what's happened? Nothing. The motion has not been denied, it's not been approved either. But if we state that in the affirmative, as I've stated here, that it be approved, and passes, then the special use permit is approved. If the motion fails, then it's denied. After a motion has been made and seconded, the chair should restate the motion. Under Robert's Rules, a motion can't be discussed until restated by the chair. The rationale for that is that it certainly makes it clear what is being discussed. It also enables us to keep an accurate record of what's being discussed. And we'll see in a moment how restating the motion can be helpful. The maker of a motion under Robert's rules has the first opportunity to speak on the motion, but need not do so. You may remember I said you can make a motion but not be in support of it. So if you made a motion that you're not going to vote for, then you may not want to speak. And under Robert's rules, you can't speak against your own motion. Deliberative bodies need a record to support any decision. So members in making their remarks should reference the facts that were presented, either in favor or in opposition of the motion. If debate is extending on too long, just the meeting is developing a life of its own, then there can be a motion to either end the debate or call the question. This brings the matter to an immediate vote. It requires a second and a 2/3 vote.
Can anyone bring that motion forward?
Pardon?
If the meeting went on too long?
Any member can raise that motion.
Okay.
Be recognized by the chair and make the motion.
And then a vote, you have to have a vote for that.
It would need to be seconded and then voted on.
Can I ask a question?
Or would you rather?
I'd rather take questions at the end,
Oh, okay. All right. Sure.
if that's okay. If you
Yeah,
can
that's fine.
write
Yep.
it down. In discussing and deliberating a motion, I think it's important to remember that our boards and commissions are almost always functioning as a quasi-judicial body with quasi-judicial authority. Quasi-judicial authority is the authority to hear evidence, make decisions, and issue rulings that resemble judicial functions. In carrying out that authority, you are striving to provide due process of law. Due process is a constitutionally guaranteed fair procedure. And that really requires considering only the evidence and testimony received at a public hearing on the matter. We should remember that there are standards for decisions. Almost all decisions that our boards and commissions make have standards. You are familiar in this board with the standards for making a dimensional variance and a use variance. Your discussion should consider and discuss how the facts and evidence, the testimony received, apply to those standards. You want your discussion and decision to be objective, that is, based on the facts, versus subjective, based on feelings or emotions. By doing that, you're demonstrating impartiality. And impartiality is essentially required by due process. Due process requires an impartial tribunal. If you are following the standards and discussing the facts based on those standards, if the matter is appealed, the judge is going to look at that and say, well, followed all the standards. Yeah, they took facts presented at the hearing, applied to those standards, and probably conclude that you did everything right and your decision is going to be upheld. As far as establishing precedent, if we have a clear decision that applies the standards and the facts, we get a similar situation at some time and we go through and the facts are laid out, we're able to distinguish in what way the new matter is similar or different. Because many times a subtle change in the facts can lead to a different decision. And that can, by having a good record there, that can allow you to distinguish a prior decision. if the facts are different. Often there are times when we need to make changes to motions. Changes can be made in two general instances. One, before the chair states the motion, or after the chair states the motion. Before the chair states the motion, the maker of the motion can seek to make changes by either withdrawing the motion, which if it's withdrawn, then there is no motion, the motion dies, or withdrawing the motion and restating the motion. If the motion is withdrawn and restated, then the original second can accept the restatement or withdraw their second, in which case a new second is required. There's no discussion and no vote. If the motion is restated, then that becomes the motion. The chair states the motion as restated. Other members, before the chair states the motion, could suggest one or more changes to the motion or the motion as restated. Now, this should be limited to minor changes for which it is unlikely that there will be a difference of opinion. Say, for example, the address on the motion that we given here was 829 West Cedar. If the person making the motion misstated that and said 819 West Cedar, that could be a basis, certainly, for this kind of motion. We had an example tonight where we were clarifying who the owner of the property was. Again, that's was a relatively minor change for which there was unlikely to be any difference of opinion, and there was no difference of opinion. So there we certainly had the person who made the motion and the second approve it, and that proceeded on. The maker and the second, as I've stated, have to approve the change. If the second doesn't, then you need a new second, no discussion and no vote. And if the changes are accepted, that becomes the motion. That procedure in a small body like this can be used after the chair has restated the motion. Again, to make minor changes. There's not always a lot of time between the second and the chair stating the motion. Otherwise, after the chair stated the motion, then you need a motion to amend the motion. To amend a motion, a member once recognized by the chair should state the proposed amendment, as in, I move to add the words "and mink" after the words "ferrets." If the amendment receives a second, this becomes the matter under discussion. Motion to amend is a secondary motion that takes precedence over the main motion. The chair should restate the amendment, and the maker of the amendment has the first opportunity to address the proposed amendment. A proposed amendment can be amended. So another member may move to amend the proposed amendment, as in, I move that the word mink be replaced by the phrase other members of the weasel family. If seconded, this becomes the matter under discussion. So now we essentially have three motions that are out there. Robert's Rule says an amendment to an amendment takes precedence over the motion to amend and the main motion, so that gets discussed first. By restating the amendment, or the amendment to the amendment, it makes it clear what's being discussed, so that we don't get confusion over, are we discussing the amendment, are we discussing the main motion, are we discussing the amendment to the amendment? Once it appears there's no further discussion or there's a motion in debate approved, then the chair calls for a vote. The chair should state the motion being voted on, as in all in favor of replacing the word mink with the phrase other members of the weasel family, say yes. All opposed, say no. So we're dealing with the amendment to the amendment here. I'm suggesting you say yes and no. I and other things are antiquated terms. We don't need to use them if we don't want to. Yes and no is sufficient. So we have a vote. Chair announces the results as in the motion is defeated. The question before the board is an amendment to insert the word mink after the word ferret to permit kenneling of both types of animals at 829 West Cedar. Is there any further discussion? So if there's no further debate, the chair calls for the vote. All in favor of inserting the word mink after the word ferrets to permit the kenneling of both types of animals, say yes. Opposed, say no. Once there is a decision on the amendment to the amendment, you proceed straight to the motion, then you vote on that. The chair announces the results. The motion is approved. The question before the board is whether a special use permit, as requested by the Smith brothers, to operate a kennel for ferrets and mink at 829 West Cedar be approved. So, once a motion is amended, then that amendment becomes the motion. Members of a public body have a duty to vote on all matters coming before the body unless a member is conflicted due to personal, financial, or fiduciary interests. Members should not abstain from voting on matters unless conflicted, and the conflict should be clearly stated and reflected in the minutes of the meeting. So, for instance, in the example that we've been discussing tonight, if a member held a familial or financial interest in the Smith Brothers kennel, or lived within 300 feet of the notice area, the member is conflicted and should not participate in the discussion or voting on the matter. Some attorneys advise conflicted members to leave the dais or the room. There's no legal authority requiring that step. I have sometimes requested that rather than remaining on the dais. You can remain on the dais. My advice is if you are conflicted and do, put on your best poker face, because there is a possibility, and maybe that spicy taco you had for dinner before you came in is giving you some gastrointestinal problems. And if you start scowling or frowning, somebody can interpret that as trying to influence the board. You might think that's remote, but it's incredible sometimes the arguments you can see on appeal, how somebody's trying to be biased or influence the board. So we want to appear unbiased. We want to be unbiased. But appearances are important. If you think you may have a conflict, you can certainly contact staff, Pete, or myself to discuss that ahead of time, and we can resolve how to handle that. Sometimes it may not be an actual conflict, but you may just feel, for appearance sake, you would prefer to abstain, and that may be appropriate. Sometimes there's a desire to put off a decision to obtain more information, or because of uncertainty, the impact the decision may have on the neighborhood or community, or perhaps other reasons. That is done if we're putting something off to the next meeting by a motion to postpone. It is not done by a motion to table. In my opinion, a motion to table is the most misunderstood and misused motion in Robert's rules. The motion to table is intended to simply put something off until later in the meeting. So if some matter comes up that, hey, the motions we have pending, we really need to decide this before we decide a main motion and any related subsidiary or secondary motions, then you motion to table that matter. Later on, you decide to consider it, then it would be a motion to remove from the table. The motion to postpone must indicate when action on the matter will next be taken up, as in the next meeting or after a certain described event. It requires a second and a majority vote. It is debatable. There is also a motion to postpone indefinitely under Robert's rules, and that you really shouldn't see. It's not appropriate for deliberative bodies because there is a duty to act on matters coming before you. And essentially, a motion to postpone indefinitely just kills the matter because there's no time specified to consider it. There can be instances where a member may have been confused or decides to change their vote. In that case, they can make a motion to reconsider. That should be made as soon as possible while there's no other matter pending before the body. And only a member who voted with the majority or the prevailing side may make a motion to reconsider. It has to be considered before the body takes up the original matter again. It needs to be made on the same day as the vote to be reconsidered was taken. If that was taken up at the next meeting, it would probably be prevented, particularly with the Zoning Board of Appeals, because it could not be applied where provisions of an affirmative vote or have been carried out or something has been done that can't be undone. In a month's time, somebody's probably acting on your decision. Motions to recess or adjourn are the highest ranking privileged motions. They suspend or terminate the meeting. They require a second, but are not debatable. But a motion to recess can be amended rather. For example, changing the time when you will reconvene. In most cases, the need to recess or adjourn is apparent, and the chair, unless a member calls for a point of order, may use his prerogative to call for a recess or adjournment in a meeting. Now, a point of order is used when a member feels that the Roberts rules are not being followed. So in this example, a point of order would likely be someone desiring a vote on the adjournment or the recess. Unless examples of how the chair would do that, the chair could say, unless there is an objection due to the length of the meeting, we'll take a 15-minute recess and reconvene at 9:50 p.m., or there being no further business before the board, this meeting is adjourned. Of course, the chair of the board can always prefer a motion and vote to recess or adjourn. And under the Open Meetings Act, any adjournment more than 36 hours requires the adjourned meeting to be renoticed. Any questions?
Yes.
Beth has a question.
You had one earlier, you start.
Okay. I felt kind of bad, but you know when you were trying to get somebody to second, and the reason I don't, and you did a great job, I've got to have a script. It's counterintuitive to me at the end of the discussion when we're getting ready to vote. It just seems to me like you would say, oh, at the close of discussion, I make a motion to vote. But you're not. You make
I suppose technically somebody should make a motion to end the debate and we vote on, or end the, whatever it was called.
Or the chair can observe, is there any further debate? Seeing none,
But I think maybe
we have a vote.
Gary's question was you were asking that, which was, if it's going on too long and we're just sort of repeating ourselves, can I just jump in and like move to end the debate?
Yes.
But if it's sort of hit a lull, you're saying the chair can just, yeah, we're done debating. Let's get our
Correct.
motion out here.
And I think in most cases, everybody's pretty much had their say, and technically under Robert's rules, everybody gets the opportunity to speak twice, and nobody can speak the second time unless everybody else has spoken. Have we ever rigidly followed that rule? No.
Not yet.
I don't know that it's necessary to follow that rule as long as everybody has the opportunity to speak in this size of board. In most cases, I think that works fairly, maybe less formally. But then again, making sure everybody has had the opportunity maybe demonstrates that sometimes, some of us are more talkative than others. And I'm not naming names or pointing fingers, but, we don't want it to appear that one person is just dominating the conversation and everybody else is going along. Everybody has had a chance to speak and express their opinion.
For the most part, it seems, and I may be off base, we can fudge the rules a bit on most of these things as long as we get the motions stated properly and vote on them properly.
Right, and
so that
go through your deliberation, develop your facts, apply your standards. Right.
We can be a little. We don't have to be fussy on the I recognize so and so and all. As long as we get a couple of these things like dead on, we're going to be good. But obviously, it would be preferable to keep things ordered.
Well, Robert himself said that he didn't consider his rules to be a rigid guide that had to be followed precisely on every point. He intended that to be a guideline. And as I mentioned earlier, the Robert's Rules people observe that you can be less formal in a smaller board.
Sorry, I took over your question there, Beth. I apologize.
Okay, no, it was a good question. I need to write down exactly what Allison said. So when we get in that situation again and the discussion is over, and then Joe prompts us, what are we supposed to say?
Just say second.
No.
You don't have to restate the motion. You just second the motion.
But we're having the discussion.
Sure.
And now we're done.
So we've hit the lull, and
right.
Somebody please make a motion, and
if nobody seeks recognition from Joe as the chair, then Joe can say, I will entertain a motion to, or can I have a motion to, whatever.
Right, and I picked up on your cue, but I didn't know what to say because a motion, it doesn't make sense to me because why are we making a motion on a vote? I wait for Pete to say.
Yeah, well, we don't have to necessarily make a motion on a vote. You can just call for the vote.
Well, we need to have the motion.
What's the phrase?
We need to make the motion to, the finding of fact.
Right, I got that.
That's motion and seconded, and then we need to have a motion to approve.
That would be the main
XYZ, motion. And then we need a second on that, and then I can just say, take the vote.
Okay, and that's what confuses me because a motion to approve to move to a vote? I mean,
sorry.
And that's why
I tend to shortcut down to the motion to approve the request or whatever it is.
Yeah, so what Beth is asking about, you're talking about the statement in here where it talks about the chair should restate the motion before asking.
But if there's no motion asked for, I can't somebody's got to make a motion, and then I should.
Okay,
and then I should say the motion, blah blah blah, is whatever. Please take the vote.
You don't need a motion to vote.
No,
you're calling a vote on a motion that's already been made.
But we have to make the motion Yes.
Yeah, well, you can't vote unless you got a motion.
Absolutely.
Right,
You gotta have something
but you
to vote
say,
on.
I need a motion.
Right, so I'm
And-
saying I need a motion so that we can vote on something.
Right, but then Allison
So I guess I
said,
should be clear and say, I would entertain a motion to approve whatever this is, and then
Yeah.
somebody would say, I move to whatever.
right, but we
Exactly.
don't want to
Somebody's gotta
approve it because
But you have to, but.
Because
you-
Pete says, okay, I'm taking a vote, and then we approve
No,
or
no, no.
not. So what are we
No,
approving? That's why I don't say anything.
You're misunderstanding the use of the word approve. I'm saying, let me pull out the one like.
See, and that's
does
why I
some-
just
would some-
don't.
I need a motion to approve ZBA number 2406, whatever. Somebody please make the motion.
Right, and we can't approve it because we got to vote.
So you got to somebody's got to make the motion, somebody's got to second it, and then we can approve it or not.
That's a lot of activity.
Then,
Well,
when-
I just
hold
don't
on,
like the
just-
word approve, because we're not, the voting either approves it.
Right.
And
but
that's
you-
why I just
The
don't.
voting approves it, but you have to make the motion to approve it so that you can vote on
The motion to
approving it.
approve the
Yeah.
vote?
No. Going back to the
Well, you're
example.
leaving out the discussion.
I'm leaving out the
element.
Yeah.
no, you're right. We make the motion to approve, discuss. I suppose you're right. I can just move straight to the fine, we're at an end, let's take the vote.
And it flows pretty well. You wait for comments to wind down. and-
Right.
You know, Pete, we're ready for a roll call vote. Or, or what this is implying here is you could, if it was a confusing motion, you could restate the motion and then say, we're ready for the roll call vote.
I think generally we're doing it right.
Okay.
And
Yes.
Charlie stops us if
All right,
we're,
well, that's
if we're
what I just
messing up.
did.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're generally
And it's-
doing
You did a nice
possible-
job saying the vote to,
Yes.
motion to approve.
Sorry, somewhere in, it was a long discussion.
Yeah, that's okay.
The
We got it.
example of motion we used here is fairly simple and straightforward. So
Motion
that
to
you can
approve.
restate. Sometimes we have a longer, more complex motion.
Last one.
So it is possible to have the secretary or staff state that for you.
So a chair can't make the motion in general. Can he second it? Or she?
Can't second it either.
Okay.
That's got to be from the membership.
This is more of a technical issue. So I get the non-voting for conflicts of the familiar or financial, but it specifically says or lives within 300 feet of the notice area.
Yeah.
What is the legal basis of that? Is that like in statute or something?
That is in the statute. That is the notice area
Okay.
or variance. Those are the.
It
so
directly
that's been the-
affects you if
So
you're
if
in
my,
that.
okay.
The idea is to notify the
Got some
people
of
that
them.
are most directly affected and might be interested.
So I
For
can't sit
or
up,
against
so I
that.
could, so for instance, if my neighbor wanted something, I shouldn't sit up here and participate in this discussion, but I could trot down there and say it
You
from
could.
over there.
If you sit up there, then you're going to just be quiet and keep.
But
it
I need to
over-facing.
sit over there or
Or you
whatever.
can come
and-
down here, but you would need to announce, well, this is my neighbor and I am going to abstain from voting.
Okay.
I'm curious about the reconsideration piece and what, we always say this on this board about the president also. Like, oh, we're setting a precedent and we don't want, Attorney Bear to have to go and represent this in court. Can you talk about that a little bit more? Like the reconsideration, it said that you have to wait, like it has to be before the vote, you can reconsider. Like, what's your timeline on that? And what if somebody wants to reconsider some stuff that they voted on a year ago? Like, what's the process
That you
for
can't
that?
do.
You can't do, okay, so talk
Even
about.
at the next meeting, you
can't
can't
do it.
reconsider. It
Yeah,
has to
I
be at
heard
the
you.
same meeting.
Got it, I heard you, but what,
You get into detrimental reliance issues? Where
Well,
once
it-
they leave with their approval, they start spending money, you can't take it back.
Yeah, and there would be, or certainly could be a legal detrimental reliance issue there, arguably, but, and Robert's rules say, and I think for good reason, that if action's been taken, then you cannot reconsider.
You can't reconsider. Okay, well, all right.
So if you think you're going to have second thoughts, you should vote no.
Yeah, and it's just one interjection. It's also spelled out in the rules of procedure for the ZBA, that reconsideration process.
Okay.
So it's clarified right there.
Where's that at?
In the rules of procedures, the last page.
The rules of procedures on the last page, that thing you gave me, that binders?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I can recirculate a
Yeah,
copy to
that'd be
everybody.
great. Thank
Okay.
you. I'm
I'll do
curious
that.
to know about that. Thank you.
Yeah, they should have that, Pete.
Yeah, thank you.
If it's in
I
the-
think he gave us he was good. He gave us a
You're
good
making
binder.
it seem like it was like this. She's like
Well,
two Big Macs.
the binder.
Two Big Macs.
Because wait, leave me alone. Thank you. Thank you.
So I do have one last slide.
Yes, sir.
And that is regarding resources. And we have pictures of the official publications up there, the 12th edition, which I showed you. And then there's the Robert's Rules of Order in brief. I have found that there are lots of other publications. Those are usually older editions that the copyright has expired on, and they tend to be in older, more archaic language, and I found them a little more difficult to understand than the official editions. For additional resources, probably the Robert's Rules in brief is all you need and more. There is a Robert's Rules website, and that has questions and answers, and you can post questions there about parliamentary procedure. And we have provided you some cheat sheets. Those are in your folders that
That's really
can
nice.
be helpful. And always ask questions.
Absolutely.
How do I do something? Well, that's part of what I'm here for during meetings.
Did not realize.
Thank you, Charlie.
I did not realize it was
Thank you.
600 pages because I feel like I've only ever seen like a real skinny volume of it. That's probably the in brief.
I got the thing on Amazon, and they have like it breaks it down, like so it's more palatable for the humans.
I
a study
assure
guide.
you, I'm not interested in reading 600
Quick guide.
pages of rules.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
Are we? Can
I
you
guess
do
we're
that?
we're
do that. Yeah.
here. We're
Thank
officially
you.
adjourned.
Yes.
Good meeting, everybody. We heard about your coffee and your dog. Right. Good meeting.
Tiki, let's go. Where's Mushi?
There's that X scroll that Jake tried.
Go into detail about your coffee. I kind of chuckled.
Well,
Mushi.